Welcome to 50 Shades of Wealth, Confessions of a Real Estate Investor, the show where you'll learn the real estate investing secrets of the pros. Your host, Sarah Jung, pulls back the curtain and shows you how to build wealth with real estate investing.
Welcome to 50 Shades of Wealth, Confessions of a Real Estate Investor, the show where we talk about the good, bad, and ugly when it comes to real estate investing and discuss strategies for building long-term wealth through education and personal growth. I'm your host, Sarah Jung, CEO and founder of Legacy Bloom Investments. And today, I'm really excited to have with us a special guest, Derek Clifford. Derek is a successful real estate investor of single and multifamily properties. He's acquired 13 units out of state while just in his first year of buying real estate, while working a full-time W-2 job. He's also the founder and CEO of Elevate Equity, a firm that partners with individuals and companies to purchase, improve, and operate cash-flowing multifamily apartment real estate. He's also written and published his first book called Part-Time Real Estate Investing for Full-Time Professionals. He also loves to give back to his community, and he has a passion for breaking down complex topics into easy-to-understand ways. He's helped many people start and maintain and grow their portfolios to achieve their own financial independence. So welcome, Derek. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you so much, Sarah. It is an honor to be here. Thank you very much.
So Derek, I'm really curious. So you have a full-time W-2 position. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do?
Sure. Yeah. So I work as a project manager in a very large utilities company here in the Bay Area of California. So many of your listeners that are local may know Pacific Gas and Electric. I work for them. But also on the side, I invest in real estate as well. And I've been doing that for about 4 or 5 years now.
Wow. Good for you. So you're working for the PG&E that we're all very familiar with here in California.
That's right. And if those of your listeners out there have seen the movie Erin Brockovich, then they should be particularly aware of the company as well. But I love the company. They've made great strides and they're doing some good stuff now. So I'm very proud to work for them.
That's fantastic. Well, it sounds like you really enjoy your job, and it sounds like it's been fulfilling for you. So tell me, what made you interested in real estate, and specifically, what kind of real estate do you invest in?
Yeah, thank you. So right now I'm more interested in multifamily, and I've been looking at that for the past couple of years. But when I started out, it was working with single family homes. There's a lot of reasons for that, but when I started out, it actually started all by accident. When I met my wife, fiance and girlfriend at the time, she was living up in Washington State, and she had purchased her condo about literally 1 month before the 2008 crash.
Oh,
so
wow.
She had bought the property for, I think it was like $250,000. About a year later, the value of that condo was down to like almost 100.
Wow.
So either way, she stayed in it for a little while. She went through grad school. We met at that time. And so we ended up using that place a lot. And then, when it came time for her to graduate 4 or 5 years later, right, it had not recovered enough for her to be able to sell it without writing a check, which of course we didn't have because she was a starving grad student. I was just getting my career started as well. So what we had to do is we had to think creatively and say, okay, well, we can't sell, and we're looking to try to move because she got a residency in the Bay Area. So we didn't want to limit her potential in being a doctor, right? So we had to figure something out here. So what we ended up doing was we started to get as many resources as we could online about how to become a landlord in Washington State. And we pretty much prepared to just put some tenants in there. And, once we got some tenants in there, we got really lucky because there was no property managers needed. They were just really well-behaved grad students, really great tenants, and they actually spoiled us. But, on the drive down from Washington down to the Bay Area, I was thinking to myself, hey, we've got some people paying our mortgage and more. We're actually profiting from this thing. Like, this is fantastic. And so I started to think a little bit on the drive down, which is a long drive, by the way. It's like 12 or 16 hours, right?
Lots of time to think there.
Lots of time to think. I started to say, boy, I could get more of these, right? Like, why not? It's just putting money in our pocket and it doesn't take too much to manage. So that's how I got started. And then, once I had the intention to start learning more about it, I pretty much scaled up. And in my first year, I burnt through all of my personal capital that I had and basically went from having nothing out of state to having somewhere around 15 units in 9 months in Indianapolis, in a market that I knew nothing about, and almost prior to my first property there knew nothing about and didn't know how to go about it, but knew I needed to take action.
So on those units you bought in Indianapolis, being that you're out of state, I mean, how did you do that?
Yeah, so the first property I bought was a turnkey. I understood that in order for me to be able to converse intelligently with people in that market, I had to have some sort of property to say that, look, I'm an investor, I'm looking to expand my footprint. And I also wanted to have a footprint and a benchmark for me to be able to gauge success on property going forward. So I got that first one out there, and I started getting my rent checks in, as you will with turnkeys, at least for a while. Then that ended up being a problem, but at least I liked it so much that I started talking with wholesalers, went out to visit the market, studied up really hard, and then a wholesaler presented me with a package of properties, like 5 of them all at one time within my criteria, and I just bought all of them at once. And so I kind of like took the plunge right away.
And this was with your own money at the time?
That's right.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah, thank you.
And how was it? I'm just curious, how was it managing out of state?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the easiest thing, but honestly, like if you're good at working with people and you interview enough property managers, you can tell who's genuine and who's not. So really, if you're good at working with people and you trust them, or you come with the intention that this person wants your business and wants to do good by you, and you just study up and know what's appropriate and what makes sense, and then also having a network of people behind you to be able to bounce the ideas off of, that's really what helped me get started and helped me maintain the portfolio successfully.
So essentially, what sounds like it's really important, which is a common theme, is having a really good support group and having the right people on your team to rely on, and really just having good boots on the ground there, right? So that you can trust them to do the work that they're supposed to do.
That's right. I mean, as you know, Sarah, this is very much a relationship-based business, right? Like the people that you have that are your residents, they're people. The people that are managing your residents and working for you, your property managers, they're people. Your contractors, they're people. And most importantly, the people that you're buying from and the people that are helping you transact, the brokers, the agents, the wholesalers, they're also people. So the better relationships that you can build and maintain, and the more that you understand how to work with other people, the more success you're going to have in this business. And so I've been fortunate that my job at PG&E has given me that skill to be able to converse with other people and negotiate and listen, try to understand things that are being said between the lines and not necessarily explicitly. And so those are important skills that I took with me from my full-time job to apply in real estate investing.
That's fantastic. And I would imagine that all of those skills are extremely valuable now in moving forward. So you're working full time and trying to, buy these properties. Talk a little bit about that. How do you manage your time and how do you kind of juggle all of this? And how much time do you actually spend, if you're working full time and looking for property and vetting them out and researching them, kind of what's your process for that? And how much time do you spend doing what?
Yeah, that's a great question, Sarah. I think that in the beginning, what's really important for me personally, at least, and I'm not sure what it is like for your listeners, but for me, understanding why you're doing this is the most important thing. Knowing that this business is a crockpot. This isn't a microwave business. You can't just pop something in the microwave and then turn it on for a minute and all of a sudden it's hot and ready to eat, right?
Sure.
No. What it is, it's a crock pot. You gather all your ingredients, you cut them up, you prep them nicely, and then you throw them in the crock pot, let time do its thing. And the amazing thing is, the longer you let it sit there, the more delicious it's going to be. So it takes time, preparation, but it almost turns out delicious every time too. That's also another secret why we love crock pots at home, because you can throw anything in there and it turns delicious, right?
I love crock pots. They're the best.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And I love that analogy too.
Yeah, no, I'm glad. Thank you. And so coming in with that understanding and talking with a bunch of people that have done this before, it's a long-term game. And what I did was I knew that it was going to be a long-term game. And so what I had to do is I had to say, okay, what hour of my day am I going to devote to real estate investing? So I blocked out about an hour before my day began. I went into the office an hour early. So the day usually started about 8 o'clock in the morning. So I would make extra effort to get in by at least 6:30 or 7, so that way I can get myself organized. And while I'm in the office, I've beaten all the traffic already in, which is actually a big deal here in the Bay Area, as you know.
Oh, yeah.
You get in early, you do your time there, right? And then if you need to take care of a few things, you can use some time in your lunch hour as well. But generally, I was using my 1 hour of time before work started to get the most important things in my life, which is my financial independence and my real estate investing, out of the way or done first. I ate that frog, if you read that book from Brian Tracy, right? And so I knew that it was going to be a process. It's not going to be an instant thing. So I just knew that this was my thing. I just had to put an hour in each day, even if I didn't know what I was going to do each morning. I had to get in there each day 1 hour early. And if I didn't know what I was going to do that day, then I would just pop open a podcast or pop open a book, just make progress somehow.
So regardless of what it was, you were just being very intentional on the time that you were spending and really blocking that out to either look for real estate, make offers, potentially analyze, or just even educate yourself on real estate, which, I mean, because I just think about, the days that we have, and they go by so quickly and we have so much going on. It's really easy to just let the whole day fly by and then realize we didn't do anything that day.
Completely.
So I think that your strategy about really time blocking and making it an intentional act to spend the time to do that. And then would you spend any time in the evening then as well?
Yeah, there were some times where in the evening I'd devote some energy and time to it, especially if it was coming down to crunch time. Like, if I was doing a 1031 exchange, which that also happened in my early years in investing, that was something that took a little bit of extra effort. There was a lot of things going on at the time. And so I needed a little bit of extra juice to keep things moving. And I was more on the operational side rather than, on the mindset and the finding properties side. So yeah, sometimes that happens.
So you started in the residential and then you moved into more multifamily. So talk about that process. How did you go from residential and what made you decide to go more into multifamily? Because you're in multifamily now, right? So you're focusing more on the multifamily. So then how did that evolve?
Man, another good question, Sarah. I love it. So when I first started investing, I realized that multifamily was going to be the way that I wanted to. That's where I wanted to be. That's where I wanted to end up. But at the same time, I understood that, again, long-term focus, right? I knew that I needed to start somewhere, and I needed to start with something that was manageable. I needed to get some experience and get some understanding of what the lingo and the vocabulary is for investing in real estate. So since I didn't have $100,000 sitting around, right, I had more like 20 or 30,000 sitting around, which is a pretty manageable amount of money for most of us, at least that have been working for a while and have been saving up some money and ready to invest, right? So I said, well, how can I apply? How can I start? How can I learn something? How can I take the step to get myself there? And so during one of my morning sessions, I figured that, look, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac will let you take out 10 mortgages in your personal name, right? Mm-hmm. So I said, okay, my goal is to get 9 or 10 rentals, as much as I can get, as much healthy debt as I can get out there first, as quickly as I can, in a market that's healthy and appreciating. Because what I wanted to do is I wanted to get my healthy debt out there and then plan my next move. So I was absolutely bent on just getting out there, buying as many properties that I could get that was cash flowing. And trust me, I did a lot of due diligence to make sure it was cash flowing. I wasn't just buying everything that came my way, right? That's part of the education. But the whole strategy was to get as much healthy debt as I could out there so that I could plan my next move, because multifamily there's more at stake. Right? There's more people, there's more relationships, there's more zeros behind the price, And so you can do really well, but you could also do really, really bad as well. So the whole strategy for me was getting as much debt out there that was healthy as quickly as possible so that I can let time work for me, and that crock pot and all those juices in the crock pot can continue to get nice and delicious while I wait for my next project and plan my next move on the next project in multifamily.
Wow, that's great. You had mentioned, the due diligence and analyzing the property to make sure it's cash flowing. How do you analyze properties? Do you have tools, or do you use like a specific calculator, or do you have multiple ways of doing that? And kind of what do you look for?
Yeah, so I go through a lot of this in my book, actually, but just to fill you in on how I do it with the single families, or how I used to do it. Now I'm not really buying single families anymore, but I first started building my own tool and then comparing that with the Bigger Pockets tool that's out there. And I like the Bigger Pockets tool, but what I don't like about it is that it's not easily repeatable. And what I mean by this is, if you can build a spreadsheet where you do all of your underwriting in an Excel spreadsheet in one column, right? Think about the power that you can do if everything is in one column and you can compare properties side by side, right? Like you can underwrite 6 properties all at one time and you can just look at them all side by side. So doing something like that was really, really helpful because it lets me look at like what I looked at in the past and where the numbers are. And it helped me benchmark other properties to other ones. And there are some rules of thumb that I use, like 5% maintenance is what I keep for properties that are in good shape. And sometimes it can go up to either 10 or 15% of gross rents if it's a property that is in bad shape and you don't do very much rehab up front. CapEx, I keep at 5%. And then vacancy, I like to put about 7 or 8% in as well in single families. And then usually property management will come in at about 8 to 10%, depending on your relationship and how many you have. And then, of course, insurance and taxes, that's stuff that you can pretty easily look up. But yeah, that's pretty much the basics there.
You're listening to 50 Shades of Wealth, Confessions of a Real Estate Investor. Want a free guide to behind-the-scenes secrets of real estate investing? Head on over to legacybloom.com and claim your free book today.
So, Derek, so you actually built your spreadsheet. And because, I've analyzed, when I started out in residential, similar to you, I would analyze the cash flow on the properties and I would use a spreadsheet that just had one property at a time. And it was really frustrating because unlike you, I did the single one and I had to go back and look at it. And so that's genius. I mean, for you to actually build your own where you can actually do multiple comparisons. I mean, that's pretty cool.
There's actually one step further you can go. Many people, I don't know if many people know about this, but you can go to Redfin and you can basically select all these homes for sale. This is if you're not working with wholesalers or agents with properties that are up and coming and you are okay buying off the MLS. I would go to Redfin and I would export a whole bunch of criteria that you can set. So you can set price range, you can set area, like you can literally draw on a map and say, this is the properties that I want. You can set criteria for what price is. And then you can hit how that there's that whole list on the right-hand side of the page. Yeah. There's an option there in Redfin where you can hit export. And if you do your assumptions right? Like if you do what I just talked about, you assume 5% for maintenance and repairs, and you set aside 8% for vacancy, and you set aside 5% for CapEx, and you have a fixed amount for, insurance and property management, you can basically export all that data and then just run everything all at once by just dropping and copy and pasting in Excel.
I had no idea that you could do that with Redfin. So I'm actually going to go and I'm going to check it out because I had no idea. That's a really cool feature. So thank you, Redfin, for making it easier for us investors.
Yes, of course. And also I would say too, that is for those of you who are just starting out and trying to find markets, it's really, really valuable for you to use that tool because then it gives you an idea of what your market's characteristics are. I'm sure, some of your listeners that maybe are more advanced might understand that each market has their own average cap rate. For instance, on the West Coast, if you were to try to buy a rental property here, then you'll be able to see that the characteristics of that market is a little bit different. You'll see numbers that are a little bit more favorable.
I see. So Derek, with the real estate investing, what is something that, you'd like to share as far as a hurdle that you faced, when you first got started? So, everybody has to start somewhere. And was there any specific challenge that you were having that you want to talk about that you were able to overcome, or something that you're still maybe continuously overcoming even now?
Yeah, thank you. Good question. I think that the main thing was time. It was just being able to find the time to be able to devote to this. Now, I have to note that back then when I thought that my limiting resource was time, it's not necessarily true. It's your perception of time. That's how I was able to overcome it, because
that's a good way to put it.
Everyone has time. Like if someone comes up to you and says, hey, can you do this for me? And you're like, well, I just don't have the time. And that's never true. It's just not high enough priority.
Sure.
So what it is you have to set a priority for investing in real estate. So overcoming that hurdle, it required me to think bigger term and think, why am I doing this? And understand the rewards and why it's so important.
That's great. And again, we're kind of going back talking about working a full-time job and, structuring out your day so that you can spend the time to educate yourself and do the activities that you need to do to invest. So with your investing experience, how has your thought process changed from the beginning to now? When you were a newer investor now to being a seasoned investor, is there anything specifically that you could talk about and how your mindset has changed about investing or just even about life in general? And also, just by the way, we're surviving through COVID. I want to ask you a quick question too on that. But how has your mindset changed over the years?
Yeah. So when I first started, everything in books is all about the positive, right? Everything's like, this is what you can do. Here's the possibilities. Here's how you do it. These are success stories. So if you go and you listen to Bigger Pockets podcasts and you listen to all these people, all these amazing people that have done some amazing stuff out there, I'm not trying to discount them, but something that changed for me was that not everything is all roses and sunshine. When you get into this business, there's going to be problems. You're going to have to shell out like $4,000 or $5,000 to fix a furnace or an AC or both sometimes.
I've had those experiences many times and they're
absolutely.
not fun.
They are not fun, right? Or sometimes it's the tenant's responsibility to mow the grass, but yet you get the fine from the city. You get that in the mail.
I've been there too.
Yeah. so there, exactly. So it really was a wake up call for me. It's real estate investing is not like stocks at all, where you get in, you get out, and you're like, okay, did I make money on that? How did I like that? This is a business. It's something that you have to work at, and you can't just abandon it. You can't just get into the property and just assume everything's going to go great. You have to be at least somewhat in touch with what's going on. And so that was a big wake up call for me that really that's kind of life. Like I used to kind of approach things as like, okay, once I take care of something, that's done. I don't have to think about that again. But obviously that's not the way life works. And same thing with real estate investing.
Yeah. So it's not just as easy as just, having a list and checking it off.
That's right. Yeah. In my book, I outline a whole bunch of different things about disadvantages and things you have to be aware of. And so all these things are kind of listed. So there's more information in there.
And we're going to share Derek's book here in a minute. Derek, talks a little bit about COVID, kind of bringing us to the present with COVID and the pandemic. Has COVID impacted your real estate business?
It has a little bit, but thankfully, I have really, really skilled property managers that I've built relationships with over the years. So I've only seen right now our multiplex. We've been at full collections so far. With my single family portfolio, I've had 1 or 2 out of the 13 units that I have in the Midwest that have started to default. But I'm working right now to get those issues rectified and trying to be as compassionate as I can. I still have mortgages to pay on those, but right now I don't really see a need for me to panic. There's plenty of runway, and most of the tenants, for the most part, are paying pretty well. So,
well,
what about you?
I've been very, very lucky, knock on wood so far. All my tenants have been paying on time. And I have some student housing properties. And I was very concerned that we would see some, missed payments and whatnot. But so far, the parents sign on those leases. And so we have been getting checks, even though the students, I think actually one of them it's empty. I don't think they're even there. But so far we are getting checks. And so again, just kind of crossing my fingers on that.
Yeah, no, that's great. That sounds like a great arrangement. You're getting checks with no one even there. That's
well, luckily the parents are on. So anybody that's doing student housing, make sure the parents are signing those leases.
Yeah, absolutely.
So our show's about confessions of a real estate investor, right? And so I'm going to be asking you a question here. So Derek, is there a confession you'd like to make to our listeners that you'd like to share?
Yes, I think it's very important for you guys to hear this. I must confess, and You can't see this right now, those of you that are listening, but I'm actually putting my hand up right now.
He is. I can. So Derek is on video with me, and he is raising his hand.
Yeah. So I can confess that because of real estate investing, I almost lost my marriage. And the reason for that is that it became so important to me that it almost had me lose sight of what life is about in general. You know, I talk with my wife constantly, and we're both in the growth mindset. We both want to grow. We both want to do good. But I always told myself and even her that the reason that I'm working so hard to try to build a portfolio is for us, so that later on, you know, we can live the life that we want to live. But she told me that the way things are going right now, she doesn't think that there would be a life to share if things keep going this way, if the energy isn't more evenly balanced, right? If all of my energy and time and effort is being devoted to real estate investing and what I can do in my spare time to help better myself in that regard, rather than being attuned to actually living as a human being and living with someone else, right?
Right.
So I think while it's important to be passionate about this, everything has its limits and everything has its bounds. And so you just have to be careful of where that is and make sure that you're not losing sight of the big, big perspective.
Yeah. Derek, thank you for sharing that. And thanks for being vulnerable in that, because that is, I mean, that's something that actually I think a lot of people can probably relate to, is when they get involved into a project, you know, is it sacrificing or affecting their other relationships? And I also know from personal experience that that is definitely the case. And you can get overly involved and so hyper-focused on a, you know, whether it's your real estate investment or a project or whatever it is, that you neglect the things that are actually more important, which is your family. And so I really appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing that with us. I think that's a really great confession. And, you know, just kind of want to tell people out there that these activities that we do in real estate investing, it's not just about the action of buying and selling property, but it's really, you know, improving our mindset to grow our social and mental well-being as well. And in order to be successful in real estate, I truly believe that you also need to grow the other areas of your life. And it's not just about the financial wealth, but it's also about the mental wealth that you're developing. So I started checking out your book. What's the name of it, and how can we get a copy of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is called Part-Time Real Estate Investing for Full-Time Professionals. So I understand that it is a mouthful, but there's a reason. You know, I wrote this book for people that were just like me who are getting started. And as a matter of fact, the avatar, that's the type of person that you are writing the book for. My coach in helping me get this book written said that you need to well define who your avatar is. And so I just visualized a bunch of colleagues from work who ask me questions about getting started with real estate investing and trying to understand the basics. And so basically the book is a holistic approach to why invest in real estate, what to expect, what the advantages are, and then the different methods. And then depending on the method that you choose, here's my blueprint, right? If you decide to go down the single family route and you want to be more hands-on, you want to be more active, here's everything I did. And here's even a time frame that I did it. So, you know, because I'm a project manager, I couldn't help but throw in a Gantt chart there so that everyone can see obtained first property, you know, and then like I broke it out into like how long it took to underwrite and my communication.
Okay, Derek, you are officially a nerd.
Oh, for sure. Definitely. There was no question, Sarah. So I broke that out for everyone to see. And then I gave another chart for like how long it took me to get my second one and third one and so forth. And then I'm providing a whole bunch of tools and I'm making it very visual for people because I think, you know, I didn't want to make this the size of the Bible, right? I wanted to make sure that it was something that was easily digestible and that people could read in their hour in the morning each day and hopefully in less than a week. And so I talk about the single family route and then why it might work for you. And then if that's not for you, why you should consider passive investing in multifamily syndications, especially for those who want to be more in the real estate side, but they don't know how and they don't really want to be that hands-on, but they know they want all the benefits of it. So basically it's a guide to figuring out what direction to go and just kind of a jumping off point for a lot of people who are working a full-time job that want to invest in real estate.
That's great. And how do we get a copy?
Yeah, so you can just look it up on Amazon. So you just have to either type in the full name of the book, or you can type in how to start in real estate, I believe, in the search bar. And that's one of the keywords that I put in for Amazon. So it should pop up there, or you can just search for my name.
What is one piece of advice that you would give, that you would tell new investors, or what is one thing that you would even tell yourself as a new investor when you first started?
Yeah. So I'm going to touch on it again because it's so important. Think crockpot. Do not think microwave. Okay. So going a step beyond that, set yourself up for consistency. So I don't want to say don't trust yourself, but set yourself up so that it's actually hard for you to break from your routine. So there's a lot of things you can do, right? In my book, I kind of touch on some methods to do this, but blocking out time so that you just set up your morning. So you wake up at 5 or whatever to get into the office early. And that's just the thing that you do. You set your alarm clock at 5, you put it on the other side of the room, and you set it at the highest volume you can. So you have to physically get up and walk to it to turn it off, right? And by that time you're up, right? Other tips include putting things on your mirror, on your bathroom mirror. Other things include queuing up podcasts and resources on your device so that anytime you're standing in line or anything, it's easily accessible. You can just hit play. Also putting something on your lock screen to help you remind yourself why you're doing this, right?
So, so all of those reminders, so it's in front of you so you don't forget.
Right.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be the one that's always hitting snooze on the reminders, not only to get up, but also the snooze on the reminders to work on your real estate business, right? Instead, you can check it off and not have all those reminders stack up. So really, I'm kind of taking a page from the book of Atomic Habits, which is a fantastic book, by the way. They talk about habit stacking and making things attractive, easy, and what is it? I forgot, but there's a lot of different things. Go read the book because it's fantastic.
Yeah. So atomic habits.
So just setting yourself up for consistency, because consistency is the only way this is going to work. I know a lot of people are looking for silver bullets out there to try to find one way to make it work. And you can do that, investing in a syndication. But as you and I both know as syndicators, it's much better to have well-educated people to partner with, because then they know what the risks are. And it's just more harmonious, right? And so we want everyone to be educated. So being consistent and making sure you will be consistent, that's the key, will help get you to success.
Thank you so much for that. What do you like to do in your spare time?
Yeah, so spare time, real estate. No. No, so in my spare time, I really like hanging out with my wife. We play board games. I really like playing turn-based strategy games like Civilization on the computer, just to help me relax a little bit. And going hiking and biking and working out and meditation as well. So
with COVID now, are you finding you're doing a lot more hiking?
Actually, yes, we are doing a lot more. We're getting out more around our local area, and it's been great. It's been actually a blessing for many different reasons, and as far as time goes.
Yeah, I hear you, and I can relate to that. Derek, how can our listeners reach you?
Yeah, so please, you can get a copy of my book, and if you want to learn more, please go to my website. It's elevateequity.org. So it's Elevate Equity with 2 E's in the middle, and then the ORG at the end.
Perfect. So elevateequity.org.
ORG, yep.
Yes. Okay, great. Derek, it has been such a pleasure having you on our show today. I appreciate your vulnerability. I definitely learned some things from you today. I didn't realize how much of a nerd you were, and I knew you were, but I didn't realize how much more, but that's a good thing.
Thank you very much.
And I can say that because Derek and I have spoken several times before, so
correct.
We know each other a little bit. So appreciate all of your input and the value that you provided today. And I thank you, Derek, for being on the show today. And if you're interested in learning about passively investing in multifamily real estate, please check out Derek's website. And in addition, you can also check out our website for additional information at legacybloom.com. And we will catch you next time. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks for listening to 50 Shades of Wealth, Confessions of a Real Estate Investor with Sarah Jung. Make sure to visit us at legacybloom.com, where you can join our investor club and grab a free copy of Sarah's latest book. And if you like the show, don't forget to leave us a quick review. Be sure to tune in next time as Sarah pulls back the curtain once again and shares more Confessions of a Real Estate Investor.